Brian, why are you so sad?
Because we're in 2014.
Oh, I mean, 2014, it was okay year, it existed. We lived.
I was in film school at this point. You were in community college. This was the last time you were here in the state with me.
Yeah, living in the state.
hmm Breathing. If you come back to the state, you can't breathe. You can't live. You walk. You cross state lines, and you'll be on an airplane. You're like, God, during the plane.
And everyone else is like, what the fuck are you doing?
It's the video of that lady that was like, he is not real. So you think it was an all right year, huh? 2014.
I
It,
didn't say for video games.
oh, okay. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. We're in a new console generation, and it's something all right. Even going back when we did the earlier game of the year casts, even though we didn't talk about those games like so much, I still felt like there was kind of that like connection, and it was like, oh, look at all these games, and like games were getting better. I'm looking through the list for this year, and I'm just kind of like, there's some solid games, and then there's just like nothing. So it's like, it's not like a lot of bad games came out this year. It's more of there's just some good games. Obviously, there's games that we really enjoyed that were maybe more than that.
We
But
do have mentions. We do have things, as in, an honorable mention for each of us.
that is true.
Brian's honorable mention is, my game of the year, so it doesn't fucking matter what his honorable mention is, because
That's not. So what was your honorable mention again?
one of the first PS4 games that I ever played, Infamous Second Son, baby. Um, it was the first round of Infamous for me. It was the tail end of the Infamous trilogy because Sucker Punch clearly isn't going back to that series. It was a good time, fun
Or
time.
Sly Cooper?
Uh, buried, buried. And my game of the year though, is what?
And I said, "Am I runner up?"
Oh, sure, whatever. My game of the year, I think that, not because there wasn't anything else that really came out this year, but this one just really stuck out because it was something that I wasn't really expecting. And I had a fun time when I got it. I had a fun time playing one level at Brian's house
That'll be
in 2014 before I left. The best level in the game, probably what the gameplay is going to be on the screen. We're talking about Wolfenstein, The New Order.
Are back. BJ Blazkowicz, he's back.
How'd you say that?
BJ Blazkowicz?
Yeah, Blazkowicz. It's
Okay.
a W, not a J.
Blazkowicz. It's add some spice.
So, Brian, how many Wolfenstein games have you played before this one?
What's funny is, well, okay, so answer none. But for me, the only one, like, we got the one that Activision put out, and we were talking about this. We were shocked that Activision were the publishers for the one that came out like a few years prior.
2010, I believe.
Yeah, but other than that, the only ones that were a thing, like, I knew about the OG Wolfenstein 3D, because if you get into video gaming, usually
we know that Wolfenstein did so much for the video game landscape.
Yeah, you hear Doom and then you hear Wolfenstein 3D. Those are like the two first-person shooters that are like staple.
Yeah, we love Robot Hitler in a jar.
Exactly, that's really
but so Wolfenstein, it was, a series and clearly had some staples and some problems. Wolfenstein still has problems to this day, even after the New Order. But New Order dropped. Machine Games said, okay, we have an idea. What if the Nazis won? That's the plot. And you're just like, okay, let's see what the 70s would look like if the Nazis won and how the regime would look like and things like that. I mean, you start off with doing, old-fashioned World War II stuff, and then, you You
Lose.
basically you lose, and BJ, becomes fucking paralyzed and doesn't want to move and gets taken care of until one day the Nazis come knocking on the door, and then he's like, "I'm fucking ready to go and kill everyone again." Um, I just think the gameplay is super solid. The machine gun, the gunplay combat is just really, really good. There's nothing like super special about it at the end of the day, but like, I don't know, it just feels good. I felt the enemy variation was really strong. It wasn't like, sure, yeah, you're just fighting the Nazis and things like that, whatever. But like, I felt like, you know, they were formidable and you had to sometimes think your way around the area. I do love those areas where you go in and you get like the intel, like, hey, take this guy out first. Because if you don't and they spot you, they're going to set off alarms and then you're going to get fucked. So you had to like think of your way around the area to like make sure you don't fucking set off any more goons because you'll get swarmed if you do.
I will say we've talked about games. This is kind of the era where like story games take over and like what are you willing to put past for a video game? I think unlike certain games, I agree with you a lot where a lot of the other mechanics of the game, like the story is number one and the world building is there. But the gameplay is not like it's okay. Like it's actually good. Like it doesn't feel like the gameplay is so secondary. Like it's very solid. It feels good. I will say the sneaking around stuff definitely feels like kind of very simple stealth mechanics. But again, it's not like a terrible system. It clearly is trying to
It's
be more run and
it's
gun.
like, hey, let's throw in this, see if it works.
Yeah.
And if it does, cool. If it doesn't, whatever. It does. It's good enough for the type of game that it is. Um, it very interestingly, the game throws a choice at you at the beginning of the game, choosing between two different squad mates that you have, and the storylines are not like they're completely different, but you get two different character interactions for whoever you save, as well as a different final boss in a sense. Not really a final boss, but a different boss, depending on your choice. And they do have that same thing happen in the second game where the same character you pick, relates back in the new Colossus. Um, I felt like the base was kind of cool, interacting with your area and members. Um, the health system was really interesting. It was really trying to throw back to that old style of like Wolfenstein and Doom, where you had to find health pickups to get better. Because it's realistic in a sense where you wouldn't just regenerate your health. You'd have to find things to patch yourself up in those areas. So I do like that. Because it's just like it makes that intensity of, okay, I need to plan out my route better and try to figure out how to not to get killed and things like that. Um, the mech combat times that you do have, they're pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
When you go into those special gun areas.
There's
Uh,
a cool, so I guess this is a good story. Like I'll interject the story part with this thing first. So the one thing I really like too is I like how the game does a really good job feeling grand, but also feeling contained. Like the game never feels like it's so out of control, but like the opening, for example, is really well done. It feels big, but it's not like overwhelming. I love some of the history stuff. I wish I knew better history, but like part of the Nazi history is they win and they build a bridge from Africa to Europe. And there's like a whole set piece that's involved with that. And I thought that was really cool. I got an Xbox One, an Xbone, excuse me, like day one, have the controller to prove it, everything. Erik was over and I was like, hey, I got an Xbox. And yeah. So I thought it'd be fun to let him play. I'm like, hey, I've been playing Wolfenstein. It's really cool. What is the fucking mission that he gets to play before I do? The concentration camp, which is easily, in terms of like storytelling, gameplay, world building, everything, level design is like the best part of the game. It's horrifying. like, for a game that still has that kind of goofiness to it, because it is kind of goofy, it's a little over the top, especially when we get to the second game. There is this kind of more grand, over the top, well, not like Youngblood, doesn't go
I mean,
that
I wasn't really even that big of a fan of the second game in this series of Wolfenstein games. I don't know. There was just something about it that I was just like, eh. But no, that chapter, oh my god, it's just like, here you go, survive, find your way through, take these guys out, and then blow up the concentration camp at the end. It's like you got to think about it in that day, in that world of Nazism. If they did win, oh god, there would be these things all over the place.
far.
There would be so many bodies and things like that. And you know what? There would be plenty of people saying, "Oh, that didn't happen. It wasn't real." Kanye.
A lot of other people that are siding with Hitler all of a sudden.
In fact, I think he was a bitch. He took himself out.
That's right.
How dare his birthday be on 420?
Ruined it for every stoner.
Um, I mean, I don't really have much to say else for Wolfenstein. Again, this, as you can tell, this year is probably going to be a shorter video because we just really don't have that much to say. But I do, again, I just really enjoy New Order really much. I just, the combat's fun, storylines goofy, silly, fun, and you get to kill Nazis.
I will say, I know, like, I didn't love New Colossus. I think I liked it more than you did, but I
Oh,
will
you first.
one of my favorite things about these games until ZeniMax forced them to do what every company they own did, which is try to do an always online or all that crap. These are games that are 360 PS3 era games where it's story, it's 10 to 12 hours, it's contained, it's not over the top, there's no microtransactions.
There's no multiplayer.
You played the 360 version, right? Or did you play the Xbox One version?
I played it on my PS4.
Oh, okay. So neither one of us got the fun of, we joked about this a few years ago. I'm trying to remember if it ended up staying in the cut, but we were talking about multi-disc games. This was like a 4-disc game, you said, or something like that for the 360?
Two installation discs. Two installation discs.
It does look pretty damn good. That's the other thing I like about these companies that are in that window, like kind of an Arcane, where their games look really good, but there is a distinct art style. Now, this obviously is a little more grim. It has a little bit more punch to it because Arcane games kind of have the more cartoony aesthetic. But the look of these games are fantastic. And the way that the weapons look and the sound design, like, it's top tier.
Hey, I mean, hey, and Machine Games, next one, Indiana Jones. I have faith. I'm not saying because like Youngblood was bad, like because it was, or that New Colossus.
But Youngblood was clearly a company thing of like Redfall, Fallout 76, that whole thing. So it's like that's over.
Yeah. Whereas like, and I feel like Machine Games probably has like the least problems out of all of that shit because Redfall definitely destroyed Arcane for a hot second there. Fallout 76 is documented the whole time. Youngblood like came and it went, and like that's it. Where now I feel like no one's really gonna get mad at Machine Games because they can make a game about killing Nazis, and Indiana Jones. That's pretty much most of Indiana Jones. Oh, hello, May.
I know.
Hi, May.
She hates Nazis too, right, May? Screw the Nazis. Okay. You know what is so funny that I just realized though, as I'm going to try and be serious while this is happening right now on my shoulder, because she's
I didn't realize you were a pirate.
Yeah.
Oh, what a jump.
The thing that I just realized is I was like, what's the continuity there? It's like, you see studios want to do different things, but killing Nazis, beating up Nazis. I didn't just think about that until now. That's why they like, we're only going to do Indiana Jones because he hates Nazis. And that's what we do. That is my runner-up. I'm a big fan of it. I like reading through the games when it's fun, but I felt like this year was appropriate because this is the complete shift of 2013 was still 2013. We were still going. And I would say for a little bit, not too long, but probably for a little bit, like a few more years after this, we're in a little slowdown. But this year was still odd. So probably the two biggest games that came out this year is Dragon Age Inquisition and Middle Earth. Those were probably the two that are like
I do enjoy Middle Earth a lot. And in some cases, I think, and the year that it comes up, Shadow of War, I do think is better. Of course, Shadow of War had its own problems on release, but Middle Earth, really good, strong game, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. But so those would probably be the two top ones in that. A Stick of Truth came out, which was a really underrated
That was
game.
a fun game. That was a really fun game.
Far Cry 4, which again is Far Cry 3, but Troy Baker.
There's a lot of Troy Baker games you're saying, because I said Infamous, that starred Troy Baker. Middle Earth, that was Troy Baker.
You got two different Assassin's Creed games, which again, kind of like Splinter Cell, Double Agent. The next gen version of that game is really good, but I know a lot of people preferred the original Xbox one. This is more so the original, the 360 PS3 Assassin's Creed was way more acclaimed than Assassin's Creed Unity.
Oh yeah, this was the year of Unity.
Mm-hmm. This is when I jumped off of Assassin's Creed too. Fun fact: this was the last Assassin's Creed game I played. Was Unity.
The last Assassin's Creed game I played was Revelations.
Wow,
I jumped off early.
You sure did. One of the most influential, and this sounds like I'm joking, but it's true. One of the most influential games came out this year too. Five Nights at Freddy's, which is this is the beginning of that. We always talk about those games coming out. Goat Simulator.
It only took like almost 10 years for them to get their sequel.
The third game.
The third game in the series.
We were talking about Tales from the Borderlands that started coming out this in Evil Within, which is another studio from ZeniMax, which they didn't actually get hit with that because they did
Ghostwire.
Yes, and like
Ghostwire had its own problems though, because the director of Ghostwire, left for creative differences, and now they did skins for Dead by Daylight.
Yes, so that's a whole nother, like, that's not because they were trying to do something different like that. Watch Dogs, remember that was the E3, the previous E3, Watch Dogs, and then the Boba Fett Star Wars game that didn't happen, 1313, and Watch Dogs. These were the two next gen games, and I played the Watch Dogs one. And
out of those two games, of course, the one we get is Watch Dogs.
Mario Kart 8 came out this year as well. The game that's still selling trillions of copies. And then Valiant Hearts, which is actually a really underrated indie game if you haven't played. That it has a dog. I know Poopy Soft. Shout out to them. But so yeah, this year was kind of hard for me. But you know what was crazy is I saw some games that I was like, oh, it's easy. The Last of Us Remastered, my game of the year.
Oh yeah?
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think that counts. It came out last
year. It says right here. It said, what do you mean though? It came out last year. It says right here.
It's a remaster. It's not like the remake they did this year or last year. Excuse me. They just ported it.
Okay, you know what? Fine. I understand. But this other game, Metro Redux. Holy shit! This is two games in one. There was two games.
That's two games that came out that they just upgraded for the next gen consoles.
What are you talking about? This is brand new. It's two Metro games based off the books.
Yeah, brand new games for the new consoles that were previously released.
What the older fucking up my okay, you know what? He doesn't know. But you know what, Eric? You're not gonna get me. Because you know what? You're gonna clown one game. No, you're not gonna clown two games. You're gonna clown 4 games. Halo Master Chief Collection. Best game of the decade. Best game of the year. So great. 4 Halo games. So many multiplayer games. It's so great. What? Yeah, what are you going to say now?
It's 4 games that all came out within the last, 13 years of existence of Halo. You
I don't
know,
know what you're talking about. It is
these
brand new. Halo 2 remastered. That's new. That's new.
Halo
That's
2 Brian, did you hear the second word that you said in that?
It's just a subtitle, okay? They thought it was because they had a second game. It's like Beastie Boys did Hot Sauce Committee Part 2. They had a Part 1 and never came out, so they did Part 2. It's the same thing. And it's a collection with possibly someone's favorite game of all time.
Did you realize you were wearing a Boba Fett shirt today? And you didn't even mention.
I didn't. I actually didn't realize. Well, because this year's booty cheeks. Game of the year. I feel like I don't know if Erik thinks like it's funny that this was my game of the year or not, because this was technically my runner-up. And then because Wolfenstein was my game of the year. And
I
then
just think it's funny that the best games of this year are clearly remasters.
That is true. Hey, my bit, A+ bit. But and the Left Behind for Last of Us came out. I just say that's fucking game of the year.
Just the DLC.
Yeah. But so my game of the year is a game that I brought up on this channel and other kinds of videos other than game of the year. And it's a game that was also in that camp of games where people were like, oh, this is next gen. But in my opinion, I think it succeeded. I think a lot of people, it kind of went down a bad path, and it's sadly not a thing, but it's obviously been transitioned into other games, which we played this game recently. And joking aside, like no bullshit, Erik and I know like how I am with multiplayer games, and especially now, it's hard to sort of get me involved in that because I really like single player co-op. I like very driven stuff, atmospheric stuff, all that. This game got me into multiplayer games. This was probably my most played game that year, obviously because there's nothing out on these consoles, but Titanfall. The first Titanfall. Who would have thought?
Brian did.
I did. Vince Zampella, he left. I think he was Infinity Ward, and then he went
all ex-Infinity Ward staff members.
And then he made Respawn, which I know we've brought up before. Like when we brought up the Activision Blizzard deal, I said, look, I know everyone clowns Call of Duty, but like Infinity Ward and Treyarch, like they're pretty solid studios. And if you gave them something different to do, it would probably be pretty cool. So to see them leave, make Titanfall, and kind of in a weird way, it's like Vince Zampella changed. Obviously not just him. I'm just speaking just as him solo, right? He kind of changed first-person shooters and online multiplayer games, like really forever. He left, created Respawn, then made another multiplayer game that kind of changed things in a lot of ways. And then the games that he was in charge of took from Titanfall with like, kind of the jetpack stuff, the wall running, the combat, the movement, the leveling up, the tiers, all that shit. And it's Titanfall was pretty was kind of the shit. The whole thing with the mechs, you had different mechs.
You were about to say it's kind of shit.
I was about to say that. It was shit when you would lose. But no, like in all honesty, like for me too, I'm a console multiplayer guy. So there was parts of the game that were so cool where like you drop in, you do your thing. There was NPCs where you get extra little XP, you'd get your max. And at the end of the game, if you win or lose, you got to run. You got to go to the ship. You got to go like this. Ha, 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 ha. And why is my energy so high up for fucking Titan? But
because Max.
Because Max. And like seeing the commercials and all the E3 footage for it, I'm like, this looks like cool. But again, it was like we were at this point where multiplayer games sort of had to find a new identity because Call of Duty was sort of phasing out from all the Black Ops stuff and Modern Warfare.
This point, Call of Duty was falling apart.
It was. I mean,
in the year that
Kevin Spacey was in it.
No,
it was Advanced Warfare. Troy Baker as well. He's the lead in that. Pray X to show your respects. Press X to show your respects. That was a meme. But no, man, like Titanfall, obviously, Titanfall 2 did the campaign and it was more structured, but Titanfall 1 was more so of like each story mission was just a multiplayer mission, but it was like kind of its own loose story, which I thought they could have done without. It should have just been, here's a multiplayer game, do what you want. This game was one of those games where I remember getting it. I got so fucking sick for whatever reason, and I couldn't go to school for a few days, so I would just play this while I was home. And it was just so much fun, and it looked cool, and it just felt different. It's not this totally different, unique concept, but it felt different in the space of multiplayer games. And again, someone like me who at this time, really the only person I was playing games with is probably you. And then we weren't even playing games like that. And so like and weirdly enough, I feel like this was kind of the point in our lives where we started to really like, we still had our similarities. We had our, like, this is who we are. But I felt like this was the moment where you and I started to kind of become like, okay, who are we as like people who really like movies and music and all that shit? Like who are we? This was our existential crisis year. So like this would be a year where like I would probably get Erik to play Titanfall with me, but this was the year where I bet he'd start to be like, really? You want to play Titanfall? And I'd be like, why? It's Titanfall. There'd be games in the past where he would be like, yeah,
And
let's
I
play it.
say, I don't have an Xbox One, Brian. And you'd
Exactly.
be like, you're an idiot. And I'll be like, no, I wasn't. And you know what? Back in 2014, I was not an idiot.
No, absolutely not. But no, I just like you with Wolfenstein, it's not like, I think there's even less to say because Titanfall, with it just being multiplayer, but it, for better or worse, I'm gonna die on the hill. That is, I think Titanfall, maybe not like now, because I would say what, like PUBG is probably the game that's like it's influenced everything. But I think Titanfall is easily one of those pillars of online games where you can love it, you can hate it, whatever. Titanfall is in that camp of like, this game changed shit. And it really was a game that just, again, like, even if you didn't love it, it was just so well put together. And I think the style was so cool. And it's sad we're not going to get Titanfall 3 because that was the plan. And then, it became Apex Legends, which again, they took what they learned from Titanfall and made, a battle royale, which we really enjoy. And so,
Yeah.
I think Titanfall is great. And I think, and that was also a game that was on the 360 as well.
Yeah. I didn't play it, but it was there.
It was there. And I heard it ran like Garbo, but in the day and age where we're getting Star Wars Jedi Survivor on the old consoles, I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah, apparently, even though they needed to fix everything else.
I literally did not even try to make that Respawn connection. Holy shit.
I'm so proud.
Respawn, just no. A truly next gen experience. Just keep it truly next gen. Come on now.
Yeah, especially since they were pushing to say this is only going to be on our current gen consoles, but whatever. What was your game of the year for 2014? Let us know in the comments below. Maybe it was one of ours. Maybe it was a very niche indie game that came out that we didn't know about. Please let us know. We'd like to play more games from that year that were like hidden gems, I guess.
Did you ever play Shovel Knight?
I know of Shovel Knight, but I haven't.
Shovel Knight came out this year, and I was like, that's a game I've heard is really good.
That was a big Kickstarter game. That was a big Kickstarter. Like, comment, subscribe. Please and thank you. We're on our way to keep building up this channel. Next year it's gonna be just as big as 2014, as in
it's how about this? It's a mix of this year, but it also, the big reason why 2013 was the way it was, that's 2015. Because 2015 was definitely, there was a couple pillars that everyone loved, and then it was everything else.
And spoiler alert, I'm probably not in those pillars. But tune in to find out.
I think you might be. But anyways, toodaloo.